Looks to come inside and find one, a goal, and find the back of the net for Perth.
And the Azzurri have come back from 2 goals down to tie it up.
Cue the celebrations for the Azzurri.
Yeah, welcome to the Perth SC Podcast, episode 12, recording at a rainy old Dorrien Gardens. But tell you what a better way there is to spend a rainy old week when we are all stuck inside by taking in the latest edition of the Perth SC Podcast. We've got some big guests to come, special focus on women's football in this edition, in fact. A little bit of a focus on that. Captain of our NPLW side, Baxter Thew. She's going to jump on board. We'll hear a little bit of Baxter's story and, of course, growing up in the beautiful town of Dunsborough in the southwest and now, of course, leading our NPLW team magnificently. Also, UK-based journo writer, football writer, Ben Gilby. He's going to jump on board from Impetus Football. He's in Perth, taking in all the sights and sounds from the local women's competition. So I'll ask him a little bit about Impetus Football and, of course, his passion for covering the women's game. Blaine Treadgold is my name. Let's get into it by having a bit of a look at the weekend's results. Another tough Saturday afternoon for our NPL men as they went down 4-1 at the hands of Bayswater. Great goal by David Ninkovic, but unfortunately it all came a little bit too late with the John Birighitti Cup remaining at Bayswater for yet another year. As far as the ladder, though, it remains the same with both Perth Glory and Inglewood United, both suffering losses. Azzurri remain 4 points clear of that relegation battle at the moment. So, let's hopefully we can pick up some points over the next couple of weeks. Earlier in the day, it wasn't great for our 18s, a heavy defeat as they went down also to Bayswater, 3-0 for our 18s on the weekend, while our 20s men also suffered a narrow loss going down 1-0 to Bayswater City as well. On the Sunday, though, it was a lot brighter. Must be said, and our women's program, they travelled out to UWA Netherlands to take on UWA Netherlands, in fact, and our 21s women, they shared the points in a 0 draw before a crazy match for the senior women. That went on to finish 8-4 in favour of the Azzurri. Ella Lincoln had a bit of a day out with 5 goals. She just goes from strength to strength. Great to see Georgia Cassidy chipping in with 2, and also great to see Daisy McAllister rewarded with a goal for all her hard work in the midfield throughout this year. So, fantastic to see 8-4. Bit of a goal fest out there at UWA Sports Park. Right, there's the results for the weekend. Let's take a very, very quick break. On the other side, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to be joined by NPLW captain Baxter Thew. She's on next here on the Perth SC Podcast. Well, it's been a tremendous season for our senior women's Azzurri side, currently sitting in second on the NPLW table, looking to feature heavily in the Top 4 Cup and also making their way to the final of the Women's State Cup to be played at the Samco Football Centre next month. A big part of the side and a rock at the back for a big part this season has been Captain Baxter Thew, who's with us to have a bit of a chat on the Perth SC Podcast. Bax, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Let's start very generally. How have you seen the season so far?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously, I had a bit of an injury, so I was able to watch a lot from the sidelines initially, which was actually a good perspective. But I think as a whole, it's been really successful. We've built, a great foundation at Perth. We've developed a lot of depth. There's a lot of young talent being displayed. For a new group and a first season, we really have had a lot of success and are playing some amazing football, and I've loved it, and it's been super enjoyable.
Take us behind the scenes of that injury. What was the issue, and how's it all looking?
Yeah, in night series, I went down and I sprained my ankle, and I thought, I've done something, and I don't usually, but I came off, and I was feeling okay, but quickly found out that I'd torn a ligament and had surgery about 2 days later, I think it was. It was a bit of a setback, but I managed to come back quite quickly. So I was out for 3 months, Did the stint on crutches and in the moon boot, but managed to get back pretty quickly and have still been able to play a big chunk of the season. Ankle's feeling good, but I think just still finding my feet a bit with obviously fitness and confidence and all those fun things that come along with a long-term injury. But in the same time, very lucky to still being able to play a large portion of the season.
Was that what we call these days a syndesmosis injury?
Yeah. So syndesmosis, sorry. So similar to what Grace Johnson did in the team. I've actually done it before a few years ago on the other ankle. It's a fun one, and unfortunately, if you do that one, it generally means surgery. So, but I was very lucky to get into surgery so quickly and to get moving as quick as I did.
You kind of touched on it. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned that you weren't feeling too happy with your performances, or at least on that day you weren't. How have you been marking yourself over the last couple?
Look, I'm really struggling to recognise myself lately. I'd like to think historically I'm quite a consistent player, but I think the injury is affecting me a bit more than I thought it did, and I feel like I'm having good performances, particularly against good opposition, but then I'm finding that I'm a bit inconsistent at times, which is really frustrating for me personally. But I still have had good performances that I've been happy with, but just lacking a bit of consistency. I think still building fitness, and I think that just the mental side of it and building confidence is huge. Just accepting that I guess I am only human, and hopefully that'll come with time and just hard work and a bit more of a training routine. Hopefully I can get back to my best. But I think I have had some really good games, especially in big games. Other games I have felt like my performance has not been at my best, unfortunately.
Bax, everyone seems to have their own individual football story, how they fell in love with the game and everything else and first got involved. How does your story go?
Grew up in Dunsborough, so I played down there for a long time as a kid. I think I was, like a lot of the other girls, the only girl in a boys' team. Played for fun, just loved it. Was quite sheltered down there and probably didn't realise what was beyond me and what was possible until I was much older. Like a few of the country girls that have come through the system, I did a lot of driving up to Perth state teams and to be involved in NTC, but probably still didn't realise what was beyond me and what was possible. And I think that's just a generational thing with the age I'm at. And then, the recent growth of women's football, I still wasn't really aware of what was beyond me, but loved the game, loved the team aspect, enjoyed the challenge. I'm quite competitive. I guess just fell in love with it for what it is, and then kind of the ambition and desire to play at a higher level came much later for me. Hopefully not too late, but it was a lot later.
Was there a family connection or anything like that? A lot of us get into it due to, our parents following a particular team or something like that.
Nah, my dad was a mad keen surfer and my mum was athletic but not soccer. I think it was just the thing that everyone played at school in a small town. I just was chucked into it. My brother played. He's younger than me, but we both played. I think just being in a small town, it was dancing, netball or soccer, and I thought, let's go soccer. That sounds funner.
Sounds pretty good. Another thing, when you speak to, your story coming from a regional area, do you find that there's a bit of talent out there that possibly gets overlooked just due to that geographical kind of separation?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't want to sound like that, typical country person that says, we never get looked at, but there is 100% a barrier there. And I definitely felt that when I was initially coming in Perth and, trialling at state teams. And I definitely felt that, I was a bit of an outsider, the unknown. I didn't have that resume, or I didn't, I couldn't demonstrate, the level that everyone else is playing at because I simply didn't live there. I just kind of needed someone to trust me and give me the opportunity. So, I think it is a huge barrier. I think it would hopefully be getting better, and as the game grows, girls down there are more exposed to what's possible, and then, maybe they would move up to Perth at a younger age or things like that. But it definitely is a barrier, but at the same time, very lucky to grow up down there and wouldn't change it for the world. to be honest.
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
kind of who I am. So, yeah, got there in the end, but it was definitely harder, and it did take longer for me to get to a high level and prove that I was capable of playing at that level.
Yeah, spend a fair bit of time down Busso and Dunsborough myself, so we know how beautiful it is down there.
Yeah, for sure.
I heard a bit of a rumour, or I read a little bit of something. Were you playing senior football at 13 and 14?
Yeah, I was super young. Yeah. Down south, I got involved I actually forgot about that. Yeah, I was 12, 13 playing senior football.
Oof.
And then I think when I was a little bit older, I was playing for Southwest Phoenix, which was a club based in Bunbury, who actually played in the Perth League, and it was the Premier League at the time, but I think it was Division 1 I was playing in. But yeah, I was pretty young actually. Forgot about that.
You had a bit of a stint over east as well. How did you find that? Obviously, you'd moved from Dunsborough up to Perth, and then all of a sudden you're away over to the Big Smoke over in Sydney.
Yeah, it was a huge change. I think I realised how small Perth is. But yeah, I wanted a bit of life experience. I wanted exposure to a higher level. And went over there. A lot of it was unknown, and I was very lucky that things worked out. I went to a great club with a great coach, and the group of girls there were amazing. It was a great experience. You know, the competition over there, you've got, everyone's good, every team's good, every game's competitive. Every team has depth. And yeah, you're playing a hard game every week. I got to train 3 times a week. The coaching that I was exposed to was unbelievable. I learnt so much. And then, yeah, just off the pitch, it was tough because you're away from family, you're there for football, and that's not full time, unfortunately, over there. So you do have a lot of time away from the game that you've got to fill in, and that you're potentially alone and trying to survive and earn money in an expensive city. But yeah, overall, I loved it, and was very grateful for the experience, and that it was a enjoyable one because, yeah, it was tough at times, but overall, I loved it.
Obviously, population has a fair bit of a role to play in just how developed the game is over there. Rightly or wrongly, we love to compare ourselves. We love to try and see if we're catching up to the big smokes. How do you see, I guess, that, and I guess the progression of WA football, but particularly the women's side of the game?
Yeah, it's so hard. I think you're right. Like, population is massive, and then that competition's just so well established that it does draw the best players from interstate over there. A lot of the A-League players have their off-season there. It's just so hard to compare because, we are so small here in Perth. The talent pool is not as big. So understandably, it just can't be compared. I think the game here, it's really hard because the competition is, you've got a few competitive games, but then you have, those less competitive games. But I think all the clubs are trying to do the right things. They're trying to move in the right direction. And I do think things are heading in a positive direction, but at the same time, there are those barriers of population, interest in the game, that do make it really hard. But I'd like to think things are heading in a positive direction. But yeah, I think a few years ago when I was playing at another club, I felt like the competition was a bit more competitive, and you had, 6 teams that were pretty good, and I do feel like that competitiveness has dropped, unfortunately. But I do think that's also, a new generation of NTC coming through, and players will continue to cycle through there, and I think we might head back into that direction where things are a lot more competitive.
Bax, what do you do outside of football? What do you get up to?
Work-wise, I'm a registered nurse by trade.
Wow.
I did work in a hospital for a couple of years. It was quite tricky I was, working in a hospital earlier this season, and it was quite tricky with the night shift.
Sure.
So still work in, the rehab space and healthcare, but yeah, that takes up a lot of my time. But yeah, otherwise I'm pretty boring. Soccer, work, gym. Yeah, pretty boring, but yeah, don't have much downtime, unfortunately. So when I do, I like to have a nap and just relax and see friends, and yeah.
No, sounds fair enough to me. Just back on the park, have you always been a defender? Because it seems like for me, you're one of the best getting around at the moment, and it always seems that you just do things with such ease. Has it always been like that?
No, definitely not. No, I don't think I was. I never got much consistency in a position until I was about 20 years old.
Cool.
I was chucked around a lot. Like I said, initially when I moved to Perth, I found it really hard to push into that first team football. So I was initially at Balcatta, and then I moved to Murdoch University with the inception of the NPL. And it was there that Pete Rakic, the coach at the time, gave me an opportunity at centre back. I think just I physically fit the profile. But yeah, like I said, I was about 20 years old, so that's when I first started to play there. And yeah, I think it suited me well. Started to get some consistent first team minutes, played, one position consistently, which was really helpful. So yeah, it has been a relatively new thing, but it probably is my best position.
Yeah, I guess just to add to that, the partnership that you've built with Kim and Grace Johnston and April Nossent across the four at the back there has been pretty solid so far.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, especially playing next to Kim, like she's such a cool, calm head. We communicate really well. She's a good friend of mine off the park. So yeah, I love playing next to her. And then in terms of April and Grace, and as well as the other girls that have been able to step in when needed, like Nadia Harvey,
Sure.
Ruby, Matilda, whoever has been able to fill that back line, I think that is a real strength of our team. And all the girls are excellent. And yeah, I think it's a really great partnership and has been a real strength of our side, for sure.
And I guess other standouts this season, Charlie Wainwright in the middle alongside Daisy, they've been superb. Sam Mathers, but I guess the standout so far this season, I think, at least for me, is nailed on for the gold medal at the end of the year, or at least very, very firmly in the conversation. And that's Ella Lincoln, who's had a superb season thus far. Yeah,
for sure. And all those girls you mentioned, they've just been incredible. I think you could rattle off so many names. I think another big one is Jess Flannery, who unfortunately has had a big injury, but for me, she's been a big part of our success. But yeah, 100%. Ella for me has been great. I've never played with her before, so I've really enjoyed playing with her and getting to know her as a person. I think for me, playing against her, she's so hard to defend. She's very clinical. She's got some trademark moves. She's quick. She's fit. And yeah, for me, she has had a great season. And I've really enjoyed playing for her. And, I know she's got a lot of ambition, and I really do wish her all the best with her goals. And I think she's more than capable of playing at the next level. But yeah, there's so many names you could rattle off, like Charlie. I think April Nossent has had a standout season. She's been super consistent. She's loving her football. Jess, Matilda, I could just go on. Daisy coming back into the NPL, she's been awesome. Yeah, Sam, I really could rattle them all off, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely agree. Ella's been a standout, and yeah, looks like she's well in the race for the Golden Boot, which is awesome.
Yep, brilliant, and also very firmly in the conversation, as you suggest there, to push on to that next level, which we'd absolutely love to see. I want to talk about the boss, Brogues, Danielle Brogan. Take us inside your relationship with Brogues.
Yeah, I've known her for quite a while, and obviously I've played against her when she used to coach Perth back in the day, and I was at Murdoch. Have always had a lot of respect for her and have gotten on well with her. But yeah, when I heard she was coming back on board as coach, we probably reconnected a lot more, and she spoke a lot to me about coming over, and that there was a bigger picture in mind. Of course, we wanted success and trophies, but also we want to push players that want to play at the next level and get them prepared for that. But yeah, I've really enjoyed, being coached by her, and learning from her. I think, she's put in so much hard work to build what Perth has this season within the women's team. And yeah, I've got a lot of time for her, a lot of respect for her. And yeah, she's done a great job, and yeah, hopefully we can have some success at the end of the season for her as well as us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess looking at the season, you formed a big rivalry with Perth Red Star, and that's going to continue for the rest of the season as well. Top 4 Cup to come, and also the State Cup final against Red Star. What do you feel makes them so formidable as an opponent?
Oh, I think they've got a lot of experience. I think winning's a habit, and they know how to win, and they've had a lot of success for a long time. Like I said, they've got a lot of experienced heads. They've got, a number of players with quite a lot of flair. Like I know the Japanese players, they're unbelievable to watch, and I've played futsal with a few of them, and they're just quality. So I think they've got some real talent. They're consistent. They know how to win. They've got experienced heads. But in saying that, I'm really proud of how we've pushed them, especially for such a new group. I don't think anyone's pushed them that hard for a long time. And I think, even though in the other games when results haven't gone our way against them, I still think we had very good performances where it could have easily gone our way. We are looking, it's a shame about the league, but we are really looking to have some success and get one over them on the top four and the cup.
Yeah. Just it looks like the league has probably just snuck away, and it's still plenty to look forward to. Though it's not all lost, and we're very much looking forward to the top four cup and of course the state cup final. And is there a sense that you're chasing a bit of revenge, or is it just about what you guys do?
I think just what we do, and just I think we know what we're capable of and what we can achieve, and it would be, I think, a shame to not be rewarded for something this season. Like, we respect Red Star, we know they're good, but I think we feel that we have the same quality. We just want some, success for what we've achieved in the football that we're playing. Of course, and I actually love playing Red Star. They're probably one of my favourite games to play because it is so competitive. It is a really good competition between them, and like I said, we respect them, and it is just about us and wanting what we think we deserve and what we're capable of.
You got the big billing this weekend, 5 p.m. It'll be almost under lights by the time you get going, taking on the NTC. Now, the NTC traditionally a little bit of a tricky opponent, aren't they? Because they're very young, but of course they're always stacked with plenty of talent.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're always a team that you can never count out, and even across the 90 minutes, you can never, take your foot off the pedal because they just keep going, they keep running, they're young, they're eager, and they've got nothing to lose. So, never expect an easy game against them. Looking forward to it, and especially a Saturday night game will be fun. Yeah,
looking forward to that Saturday night under lights, 5 p.m. The Perth SC women's team taking on the Hyundai NTC. Look out for that one. Hey, Bax, thanks very much for jumping on board. Really appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for all your support with the women's team, and loving the podcast. So thanks for all your hard work.
Welcome back to the Perth SC Podcast. Great to have you with us, coming to you from the Perth San Siro, aka Dorrien Gardens. A bit of a wet old Wednesday, but I can tell you that the pitch is looking pretty lush, and we are set for a big weekend of football. Both teams, particularly our senior teams, at home this weekend. Big thank you to Baxter Thew, who joined us just before that break. And we've got another special guest, Ben Gilby. He is the founder of Impetus Football, writes for Perth, a glory member of the British Football Writers Association, and most of all, he knows the local game, particularly the women's game here and overseas inside out. I'm sure many of you would have read his articles, seen him posting on many forums, and great to have him with us, and great to have you in Perth, Ben. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here,
mate. Great to have you on board. I'm going to ask this question because I know that you're passionate about your writing, but you're also very passionate about football. What came first, writing or football?
Do you know what? That's a really good question. I can remember back at primary school, so it would have been, crikey, I would have been probably about 7 or 8. I always loved writing, but I was always kind of massively obsessed with football. I'm an only child, and my dad, bless him, he wasn't a massive football fan, but he kind of made an effort because of me, I think. Fair play to him. And I guess, when you love your football, there's no one else in the house that massively does. You kind of, and you're really into your writing. It kind of comes out that way. And playing in the playground at playtime and the rest of it, I was always the worst footballer in the school. I was always the one that got picked last. I guess the sort of the talent and the the love of the game was never, sadly, going to come out on the pitch. So yeah,
like many of us, mate. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, so it had to come out another way, and it sort of come out originally through the pen, but now on the keyboard, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mate, tell us a little bit about your background, because UK born and bred. Tell us about home and I guess everything else like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was born in southwest London. I have 3 generations of my family living here in WA. Some of them out in Leeming, others out in Balcatta, some around Perth as well. So I've been coming to Perth and WA for over 20 years now, and it's always kind of got me in heart. Perth is where my heart is. So, you know, even when I'm 9,000 miles away on the other side of the world, there's always the bit of me that's left here. And I have to come back every August to sort of find hold of myself again,
yep.
Which, you know, and this is where it is. This is where my heart is. I love this place dearly.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. And it's interesting. It's funny you say that. I was actually just reading a book last night about certain values that certainly fit in with people, and you know, Australian values that fit in with people overseas, and then maybe some Australians that fit in with certain values that you found overseas. So I do find that quite interesting. Mate, not quite a football family, you said, but Dad got keen because of you.
He got into it because of me and my uncle and my cousin. They were sort of big football fans. So my uncle was a big QPR, Queen's Park Rangers fan, West London team, and he kind of grew up watching them. It would have been in the 60s and 70s, which is probably when they had their greatest team. So the likes of Stan Bowles, Rodney Marsh, John Hollins, of those kind of players. I mean, they were quite a flamboyant team in the 70s. So yeah, a lot of the sort of the football conversations came with them when I was a kid. And my uncle passed away back in October last year, and kind of to keep that family thing going, I sort of started going to QPR on a Saturday afternoon a couple of weeks after his passing, and I've been going ever since, and I've got a season ticket there this year. But the clubs that I support are here in WA. I mean, it's been Perth Glory, and the big passion about the NPL here as well. So the teams I'm really passionate about are those here in WA. But yeah, I'm down at QPR in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm back in England.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I wanted to talk about your interest in particularly women's football, and we were talking off air. Take us back to that conversation and what actually drew you into more women's football and your interest there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of fell out of love with men's football kind of around 2000, which particularly in England at that time, it was when the money was starting to get absolutely ridiculous. And you were watching a game, and the slightest puff of wind when someone would go down rolling over and over and over, and it just got ridiculous at that point. And I thought, I can't be doing this anymore. So I started watching rugby for a couple of years. I enjoyed it, but the social side of it, particularly in, I would say, probably the London area in particular in England, it's very much about what school you went to. And I never played rugby at school. My school was a football school, a round ball football school. And there are many rugby clubs you go into the bar in London and sort of the southeast area of England. And if they hadn't seen you before, instead of you walk into a bar here in WA and it's hi mate, how you doing, all the rest of it. First question you get there before you even get a hello is, what school did you go to? And it's. If that's the most important thing, and if they haven't heard of let's be honest, no one had heard of Southborough School, because you don't have to pay to go there, so no one's heard of it. I was quickly pretty much ignored there, and again it was kind of sod this sort of thing. And I mean, ironically, the first women's football game I ever saw was here in WA. Yeah, it would have been 2008 because it was the first year of the W League season. And it was here. Perth Glory plays the then Queensland Roar with our local hero scoring a goal in that game, Sam Kerr, back in 2008. So at that point, Chelsea women moved to Kingsmeadow, which originally was the home stadium of our local non-league men's team. But for various financial reasons, they had to sell their ground. So Chelsea moved in which resulted in Kingstonian, the local team, getting kicked out of the stadium, which didn't go down too well. But I just went down there to watch a game, and it was like no other experience I think I'd ever had at that time, because there was no segregation. I mean, obviously, segregation isn't the thing out here in sport in Australia. Anyway, you go up to Optus and you watch the Eagles and the Dockers, and there's no segregation. You basically sit where you want, effectively. But that is always a big thing in England. The away fans cannot mingle with the home fans whatsoever. There's never the twain shall meet in England at all. And the thing that struck me was everyone was sort of sat or stood together. If you had a red shirt on or a blue shirt on, you were talking and having a laugh together. There was, Nan was there, Mum was there, the kids were there, Dad was there, the uncle was there. And it was just really nice. And then sort of after the game, all the players automatically came over. And again, you hadn't experienced anything like that. Coming from a men's football and even a sort of your two in rugby in England, I've never experienced anything like that. And it just felt like you were part of one family, the women's football family. And it just kind of went from there.
It is interesting, isn't it? It's very visceral, the whole male football experience, particularly in Europe and particularly when you get to a certain level. I mean, we see it in the A-League, a little bit of that separation. But there's something I like about that whole I'm here with my tribe and your tribe's over there. I do like that, as long as there's no violence or anything else like that. And we certainly don't condone anything else like that. But I do quite like that, especially when you get the two lots of crowds going, chant for chant and everything else like that. But obviously there is a whole different dynamic when it comes to women's football. And obviously you would have witnessed it coming out of the back of the World Cup, I guess, just how open and inclusive it is. But, but it's trying to be as well and really open those doors.
It is, yeah. I was really lucky because obviously being in England, I was around for the Euros the year before the World Cup. And that was a massive culture change. But I think what's been really sad actually in England since the Euros is the fact that all of the attention and the money that's come into the game in England has exclusively gone to the very top of the very top. Mm. So within 4 or 5 months of the Euros finishing, there was, I think it was 4 clubs playing at tier 3 or 4 in England, where there's promotion and relegation. 3 or 4 clubs there went out of business because they ran out of money. Their players left to join the coaches at other teams, or effectively the committees of the teams that were part of men's clubs decided that they didn't have the money there anymore. So, as always is the case, when money gets short, the women's teams are the first to get cut. Yeah. So within months of that massive thing happening in England, they're lower down the food chain. Clubs were getting cut. And even if you look at the Championship, which is the second tier in England, where there is promotion and relegation to the WSL, in this European summer, there's 2 teams in that league. So Reading, for example, have withdrawn from that competition completely for financial reasons. They're now down in tier 5. They were a Super League team. Frank Kirby's team, they were a Super League team 2-3 years ago. Blackburn Rovers have cut their pay massively as well, and there's talk of a number of academies at the Championship level going. So its situation in England after the Euros was great in terms of everyone's looking at the game, but they're only looking at your Chelseas or your Arsenals or your Man Cities, for example. Yeah, there's teams in the WSL that are getting 500 or 600 people through the gate a week.
Yeah. Even if we look at a more local level here, I mean, there's certainly the case, and it's something that we've worked very, very hard on, is to give the same profile to the women's program as we do the men's here at Perth Azzurri. But I guess there's other still freestanding teams that only have a men's team or only have a women's team. I think actually Northern Redbacks might have been one of the last freestanding women's teams. You'll probably correct me if I'm wrong there, and now they've joined to become Perth Red Star. But do you see that separating again? I mean, in your situation over in the UK, is there a chance that just women's clubs just become freestanding women's clubs?
I think it's going the other way. I think there were historically well-performing women's only teams. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, the likes prime example of that is Doncaster Bells, who are one of the top English teams historically. They lost their right to compete in the top leagues because Manchester City came in. So Manchester City didn't earn their place through promotion up through the league systems. They earned their place because they came in with Doncaster Bells dropping down. At that point, Doncaster Bells were a team that the likes of Bethany England, for example, and many others had come through there. So I think it's very hard for a standalone women's team, sadly, in England now. Whether or not that changes, just hopefully things can get better for those in that financial respect. I think danger is that things can go the same way. I hope they don't, but things could possibly end up going the same way here. Because I would love the fact that I was here for the World Cup last year. It kind of felt like those of us that had known the Matildas for a number of years, kind of that, like the secret that they were to us, why we absolutely loved them, got out to the whole nation, and that was absolutely awesome to be here at the point where that happens. You just look at how now. I mean, the A-League Women is a league that is very much a league that's got some fantastic young players in. But I think the situation at the moment with almost that second-tier league in America that's attracting a lot of A-League Women players. Morgan Aquino, for example, is one of them that's gone. It's a league that is able to put money in, even though it's not a top-tier league. So I think the question now for the A-League Women is, what do you want the competition to be? It's a fantastic competition. I love the A-League Women, and I love the way you've got players coming through from NPL into the A-League Women, and you've watched them on the pitches here play NPL for a number of years, and then they then become A-League Women, and then they then move on to the next step, which is great. I think you just think about, is there a way that there can be a future in Australia for a stronger women's game at club level as well, and where. How do you build for that? Because it has to come from the NPL leagues. It's still a pretty new thing here in WA, the NPL, the women's side. It's getting stronger by year. I think this year is. I've absolutely loved this season. It's for so many reasons I've loved this season. I think it's going to be possibly the most competitive Top 4 Cup we've had, which is massively exciting. I think that there's a space now about what do we do with the NPL, what do we want it to be, and how are we going to support that?
It's going to be interesting, and there's one side of me that says, look, we might just have to guide this over a period of time down the right course, because I feel, obviously, off the back of the World Cup, there's been an influx of and a real interest in young girls that want to get involved. And it might just have to kind of slowly just take its course until we get those numbers and those standards of those players up that standard that they can really kind of support a truly solid NPL system. Is that the way that you kind of see it?
I think the other side of it as well is that you can get a massive explosion of girls wanting to play, but the clubs either don't have the facilities or the money to be able to give those kids a place. And it's massively hard because they want to play for the club wants them, but if the facilities aren't there or they're not quite as developed as they could be, you're then coming up against a brick wall. So with all of these things, it's down to investment, and there's always a finite number of dollars. It's just how do you spend it, and how do you get the next generation, and how do you keep them? How do you keep them is a whole nother matter. But particularly, I know in England, clubs are finding it massively hard to cope, facilities and equipment-wise, the numbers of girls that are wanting to play.
And there will be those girls that don't want to play at a competitive level. They just want to play football with their friends and have a great time, which I think was probably the majority of football players out there, because it's only the very kind of top 1 or 2% that go on to become elite professional footballers and really want to make a go of it. So it's a hugely interesting conversation, and I guess it's one for the powers that be that are on the high grade money at Football Australia and Football West, and even the clubs to get involved with that one, Ben. So I was going to talk about a little bit about let's morph that into a little bit of a conversation about the season thus far, because you did touch on it. How have you seen it so far? And obviously Red Star look like they're likely to sneak away with the league, but as I said to Baxter Thew in an earlier conversation, it's not all lost for Perth because they're still well and truly involved in the Top 4 Cup now, and obviously the State Cup final to come.
Yeah, I mean, Red Star they're the epitome of a champion team, isn't it? They know what they need to do and they do it. You know when you come up against them, when you get chances, you have to score, because if you don't take your chances, it will bite you on the backside and they'll go up the field at the other end and get 2 or 3 towards the end of the game. And that's what makes them who they are, and you've got to take your hat off to them and you say, you're bloody good at what you do. That said, I think there's more than enough strength. We'll touch on Perth Soccer Club in a minute, but Thew are on an absolutely raging run at the moment. I mean, they're just possessed. Abby Green and Sneaker Lala together. I mean, they're on their day. They're unplayable. Yeah. They beat Red Star recently. Obviously, they're playing on this coming weekend as well, which could be interesting in terms of. Obviously, Red Star could clinch the league this weekend. Thew will probably fancy taking another couple of points off them as well. And then there's Balcata as well, who are on their day are very, very able. They just, for various reasons, whether it's been injury or availability, they haven't quite managed to maybe get the number of points on board that they probably could easily have done on, if things had gone another way. And I'm loving what I'm seeing at, with the Azzurri this year. I mean, you can argue that they've got the best midfield in the competition. I mean, you look at a team that can put Tiara McKenna and Charlie Rainwright, and Georgia Cassidy and Daisy McAllister. She had a fantastic game at UWA. You look at that midfield and you think, crikey, that's a heck of a team. And that's even before you think about Ella Lincoln up front. Yeah. It's been tough on her since Jess got injured, because those two together, it's they just fit each other like a glove. What they were doing together was just phenomenal. But yeah, there's a lot to like about Perth this season, and defensively as well. Baxter, for me, he's probably had one of the best seasons I've seen.
Coming back off injury as well, and alongside Kim McCartney.
Yeah, I mean they've been absolutely phenomenal at the back.
Beautiful stuff. Well, we did. I did speak to Baxter a little bit earlier on, and we were talking about the standard of this season. Obviously, a little bit to work out that what we've spoken about already, but the standard compared to other places that you've seen, Ben, where are we at?
I think at the moment, you have to focus on the growth of your own product. Sure. I think if you look at the league overall this year, okay, yes, you could say that UWA and Mum FC are down the bottom, but however, as a bottom two, they are far more competitive than the teams down the bottom we've seen in previous years. I think very much so. We saw the crazy result that UWA had with the Azzurri at the weekend. Yeah, nobody had that down as 8-4. But the thing that I've loved about UWA this year is that they are capable of taking the lead against top teams.
Well, they did it against Red Star 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yep. and holding on to that lead for a good 20, 30 minutes. Yes, it goes against them, but they haven't quite, on the whole, they haven't sort of collapsed in the way that other teams have done in the comp in years gone by. Mum FC had a really tough start. As the season's gone on, you've noticeably got better. Obviously they've got that experienced spine now with Ellen Mastro Antonio has come in. Ellis Glanfield scored a few goals, and that's made them look a lot tougher. And obviously this weekend again, they've got those two are playing each other this weekend, which with the potential of Andrew coming up could be a massive, massive game in that respect. So I think in terms of how the league is going, it's more competitive for me. And that's the thing I think you've got to measure it with how it goes over the years. It's getting more competitive. The quality is that bit higher. And I think the interesting thing for me is that now that the A-League women's season is a full home and away season, there's much more chance of the WA players staying and playing NPL now. There's less chance of them finishing the season at the Glory and then going over to the NPL in Victoria or New South Wales like there was previously. And I think that's been something that we've seen this year as well, particularly with the fact that Perth had more WA players in their squad last year, and there's more A-League women players probably in the comp this year.
And I guess just to go on a little bit about that, great to see they're getting picked up by the Glory again. Georgia Cassidy back into the Glory team. Grace Johnston. We also see Tian McKenna that's going to come in. Ella Lincoln, hopefully in the shop window as well. So it's looking good, and it's looking like there's always been a bit of a thought that maybe WA players weren't getting the crack. I think this year they definitely will, so it's going to be up to them to prove themselves.
Yeah, and you look at some of the players, I think the thing that's really interesting for me over the last couple of days is the fact that Perth Glory brought a couple of players back from the East Coast to come home. So it's great that Tian's coming back, Iskia Brooklyn's coming back, and that's really big. She's come back from the East Coast as well. And the fact that 3 players here are already signed up, and I'm saying Ella is someone that is you'd like to think from the Ray Dogs at the moment. I think Glory looking a bit light up front. Yeah. So yeah, there's obviously Tanika Lalo who's back there as well. I know at the moment the midfield at Glory is probably the strongest part of the team. But I'd put a shout out for Charlie Rainwright.
Yeah, there you go. Also, there was talk about Miranda Templeman leaving the Victory, so people were putting 2 and 2 together there. We'll see how that all pans out. Ben, just before we let you go, mate, you mentioned to me off air as well, you've got a bit of a connection to Perth Soccer Club here. When was the first time you would have stepped foot in this place?
Oh, when was the first time I stepped foot? Do you know what? Off the top of my head, it probably must have been about somewhere between 2008 and 2010. I would have thought, so what were we looking at? 14, 16 years ago, yeah. Show me age.
I guess the connection here, or is it just somewhere that you came and felt a bit of affinity with?
Well, I've always loved Leaderville. I've always the Lions have always been my waffle team. So one of the things I do every time I come back, I always, if I can get tickets for the Eagles, I do, which depends on how badly they're doing them. The worse they're doing, the more chance there is of me getting tickets.
Typical old West Coast fans,
So the last couple of years I've been pretty good. Although I have to say that both this year's visit and last year's visit, they won both times I was there. So
happy days.
So hopefully they'll beat Carlton on Sunday. But anyway, and then Subi, the team I've always gone to, they've always been my waffle team, so I always like to go down there. So yeah, it's just an extension of that. I've sort of known Leaderville pretty well. I've sort of had a wander down, and it's been fine here.
Beautiful stuff. Mate, looking forward to seeing you on the weekend. Just quickly, I won't say a banana peel, but it's never an easy feat to take on the NTC because they're always just so unpredictable with the talent. Obviously, it is the best of that young kind of group in WA, and can be a little bit of a tricky one. So looking forward to seeing how the Azzurri girls go on Saturday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, the NTC are a team that I always love to watch. Every time I'm back every year, I always like to try and see them at least once because I just love the way that Ben Anderson sets that team up. And, the players that he's worked with down the years, it just shows what a phenomenal coach he is. And his the whole way he likes to play, and and how that will feed in with the way that the Azzurri are playing this season. Weather forecast is not looking great, but if it somehow stays dry at 5 o'clock, we could have a heck of a game down here. I think
very much looking forward to it, mate. Very much looking forward to seeing you across the weekend. And thanks for giving us a few minutes on the podcast.
No worries.
Yeah, big thank you to Baxter, Thew, and also Ben Gilby for jumping on board. Don't forget, to tell your friends all about these chats that we've been having with some fantastic people on the Perth SC Podcast. They can get the podcast, of course, through Spotify, through Apple, and now through YouTube. So plenty of great ways to keep up to date with what is happening at the Perth Soccer Club. Right, let's have a bit of a look ahead to the weekend before we wrap things up for this edition. It's Friday night under lights for the Perth SC men's team as they look to take on a Fremantle City. Another huge opportunity to nab some points, isn't it? We're really looking forward to that. Plenty of fingers crossed, and that is the way that it goes come Friday night. But the night will also be a bit of a celebration as we'll see the greats of the two clubs come together to celebrate the history between, of course, and the link between the old East Fremantle Tricolore and, of course, our very own Perth Azzurri. They'll not only be fighting it out for the points on the pitch, but also for the rebirth of the famous old De Sonia Cup. So there'll be a sundowner function and, plenty of great activities going on. Plenty of ways to reconnect with the local football community. Don't forget, also on the Friday at halftime, our Crossbar Challenge up to an incredible $600. Hopefully we give that away this week. That's all thanks to our very generous sponsors at New Look Dry Cleaners. On the Saturday, bit of a festival of football, bit of a feast, and I'll tell you what, it's not a bad place to be, Dorrien Gardens, if you want to take in a little bit of football. It might be a bit wet and horrible outside, but you can sit upstairs, get yourself some nice tucker and maybe a hot drink or two, or maybe even a couple of coldies as well, if that's the way that you want to go. But we'll see the 18s and the 20s. They'll be in action from 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. respectively there, before the 21s women take the field, and then our Azzurri NPLW side. They're in action, primetime kickoff 5 p.m. on Saturday, twilight kickoff there. So looking forward to that as they take on the Hyundai NTC. Another big weekend for all of our sides. Good luck on the weekend, all of our juniors, of course, and come on, the Azzurri.